Hey everybody, Kris Gethin here. Now, if you're over the age of 35, like myself, your enzyme levels have already begun to decline. Enzymes are the workhorses of digestion. They break down your food into usable macro and micronutrients. Now, research shows that the time that someone hits 65 years old, their saliva and pancreatic secretions, both of which involved in enzyme activity, have declined by as much as 50%. Now, if you've looked at my Instagram posts, my stories, you'll notice that quite often if I'm eating out, if I'm having a steak or something like that, I am eating my Masszymes by Bioptimizers. Now, the reason why I take this is because it has over 102% more proteins than the nearest competitor and 300 to 500 more per serving the most popular brands. Now, this is crucial because as us being bodybuilders or athletes, we require a lot of protein. And it isn't just about how much you eat, it's always how much you absorb. So you got to break it down. So not only does the Masszymes contain more proteins, it also contains 13 additional enzymes, including lipase for fat digestion, which work at a very high pH level from 2 to 12. In other words, at every state of digestion. So you can try this right now today, risk-free. They're 365-day, let me get that right, 365-day full money-back guarantee is the gold standard. So if you feel that Masszymes are going to help you upgrade your digestion like mine and power through your food, their support team will give you a no question asked refund. And when you go to masszymes.com/Kris20, be sure to enter that coupon code Kris20 to receive a 20% discount off that order. Hello everybody, Kris Gethin here and welcome to the Knowledge and Mileage podcast. Oh, do we have a doozy for you today. Now, the person sat across from me, I've known, 2019? I've known him for 12 years now, 13 years. You were like the first person outside of bodybuilding.com. That was the reason why I moved here. You were like the first person outside of the company I met, correct?
See?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Wow, I've been a lucky boy. So the person sat opposite me, you've probably seen him on my socials, Nick Holt. Welcome to the show, buddy. It's been a long time coming.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
So there's a few things that I want to cover in today's podcast. So I've known Nick for many years, as I mentioned, as a friend and as an athlete. He's competed on the national stage. Junior nationals you competed in what year?
Yeah, so I did bodybuilding in 2009. Actually, back when I was 21 years old, I did my first show in Boise. I did another one when I was 23, so just newbie doing bodybuilding shows. And then I didn't compete again until 2009. I did this model walk thing in Vegas. I don't think I ever told you about that until right now. I'll have to dig up some pictures so you can see that. And then I think 2010 is when I went back on the bodybuilding stage. And I remember you were actually helping me with a little bit of advice as far as fitness and nutrition and workouts. And right around that time, you were filming the DTP, the original hardcore trainer for bodybuilding.com.
That's 2009.
2009. But it was just basically released, I think, right when I was competing, because I think you filmed it 2009. It was released 2010, maybe,
Correct.
If I remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I competed from basically 2010 till 2014. All in a row. I did bodybuilding and then the Fit USA for bodybuilding.com. I was one of the finalists 2 years in a row for that. And then I got into men's physique, which is crazy. And you made fun of me.
Yeah, because of those shorts you kept picking out. That's why.
You gotta, I don't know. It was something different, something new. And of course, Steve Cook was from Boise. So I thought, you know what? Maybe I can be a little bit like him. So that's what I did, maybe, But anyway, long story short, I ended up competing. I did well. I won a few shows in Boise, local shows. I did some NPC shows when you qualify for nationals, and I ended up going to junior nationals. I went to nationals. I went to Team Universe. and I went to the USA's in Vegas. And the best I ever did was taking fourth in Junior USA's. And it was actually the same show that Jeremy Buendia got his pro card at. So he was in the class before me, and I think there was like 40 people in my class, and I was natural every time my whole career as well. So that was pretty cool, knowing that the guy next to me maybe might be using something I'm not. So just even that much better if you win. So placed fourth, I'd say that's my best showing.
That's pretty good going.
Yeah.
And you look at a lot of those guys now, wow, they look more like bodybuilders than they do physique athletes.
Yeah.
They've become huge. And I think that's probably why Steve Cook kind of opted out of it in the end, because like he'd have to take it to that next level if he was to be competitive. And he's probably doing so well with his social media. He figured, what the heck, I'll just focus on this instead.
Yeah, for sure.
So back then, your diet was a little bit different to what I would be following. You were doing like a little bit of your if it fits your macros. You would measure absolutely everything. And if you had the calorie surplus left to fill that void, sometimes you'd eat something that would kind of be off the diet. But as long as you were in shape, then, that was fine. What was one of those weird things that I saw you do online? What was it? Did you put like a Snickers inside a baked potato or something?
Yeah, I did. I put a Snickers inside of a sweet potato. It was actually a yam, but it's virtually the same thing. But you cook the sweet potato, and you make a sliver down the middle, and throw in a Snickers bar. And I also did Reese's peanut butter cups one time.
Did your insulin levels actually scream at you?
I think if I could have put a recorder on them, they probably would have been.
So then, and you'd always been experimenting with different things. That's what I did admire about you. Like I would kind of stick to more of a routine. If it works, I'll stick to it. But you experimented and kind of went all over the place until you figured out what formula works for you. And that formula's obviously worked because you're one of the rare people that I know that has walked around for years with a set of abs. Doesn't matter what day, time, month it is, you've got those abs there. And you transitioned into a different type of protocol, which in the beginning I kind of shunted it off, and it wasn't some sort of protocol that I was going to administer myself until I had to. When I went for a colostomy, I actually had to fast for a little while, and I think it was like 24 hours. So then when I continued that fast, I thought, well, you know what? I don't feel that bad. And that's when I started coming to you and speaking to you for a little bit of advice, and I started applying it a little bit here and there. And I did so quite a bit over the past year as well, and that was intermittent fasting. So tell me, how did you stumble across this? And being in the bodybuilding industry, how did you merge those two together? Because a lot of people would think they were opposites, but obviously opposites attracted here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you said, so I used to diet for these shows, and I originally started with a bro diet, which most people know what that is. But if for those of the listeners that don't know, it's basically you eat 6 to 8 small meals a day. Some people could classify your diet as the one you were doing so many years, and the ones that most famous bodybuilders do are bro diets. But your broccoli and rice and chicken, you eat the same meal basically 6 times a day. And if you weren't leaning out, you continue to reduce your portion sizes. Maybe reduce your from 1 cup of rice to 3/4 cup of rice, and it definitely works. And I tried it, and I got in really good shape with that when I first competed as well. Then that evolved into if it fits your macros, which is flexible dieting. And I think that gets a bad rap because you see people eating all these crazy things, and when in reality, for those people that do really know what the hell they're doing, and most people that do it, I would honestly say that they don't. But for those that do, the majority of your macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fat, are coming from nutrient-dense foods, because it doesn't matter if you like those donuts or the Pop-Tarts or anything else. Once you start reducing once you get on a low calorie level where you're creating a deficit, let's say you're a man and you're normally at 3,000 calories at the beginning of your prep, and you get down to 2,000 calories, your food is going to be a lot less, and you're still going to be freaking hungry. So it doesn't matter if it's coming from a Snickers bar or not. You're most likely going to choose the clean foods because it's going to be more volume. It's going to be a bigger meal. It's going to get you full and keep you full a little bit longer. And I'll get to that, later when I'm talking about macronutrients and fiber and stuff like that. But I was doing that for a while, and then I thought, you know what? Even fitting in your macros, you still have to use MyFitnessPal, and you still have to count everything. You have to weigh it out, and I got so meticulous. You laughed at me. Remember this? Where I was eating a stick of gum and it was 2 grams of carb in it. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're writing that down on MyFitPal. It's 2 carbs. Hydrocharge that we sell, right? It's 2 carbs. In 1 scoop. You have to count that. So that is when I talk about people really knowing what the hell they're doing versus not. You don't just go to a restaurant and you're just like, all right, well, yeah, I'll take a spoon or a scoop full of rice and call it good. You know what I mean? You don't know specifically how much that weighs, so you can't use that. You can't count your macros. So most of the time, your meals are created from home. So getting that out of the way, I got into fasting because I hated meal prep and I didn't want to use MyFitPal and have to go to a restaurant and be like, oh shit, man, like, hold on, let me get out my scale. Let me see how much this weighs, or let me get out FitPal and use the barcodes and count everything. You know what I mean? I was thinking there's got to be a simpler way to get me in shape and keep me in shape and stay that way all year long. And, getting ahead of myself, when I was bodybuilding and doing all that, my goal was to get bigger. Hypertrophy, had a lot more muscle. And since then, I've added a good amount of muscle to my frame, but the goal is not to get bigger anymore. I don't want to be, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or, yeah, honestly, even as big as you. You're a bigger guy than me, and it's like it's really hard to attain that sort of muscular structure anyway. But it's not something I've desired to do. I was more like, okay, who looks like I want to look? Greg Play, he looks like I want to. He's probably about 180 when he was alive, and he's 6'1". That's right now I weigh 190. So he's less than me, so he's lean as shit. But he didn't have a lot of muscle. So all that being said, I looked at my goals and I thought about the clarity that I wanted to take my life, or at least the direction I wanted to take my life. And I was thinking, there's got to be another solution. So I read a lot of books. I always read a lot of books anyway, but about health and fasting and nutrition and stuff like that. And I stumbled upon the Warrior Diet by Ori Hefmakler. That's a really good one. And I also started watching YouTube videos and just trying different things because, just like fasting or like carb cycling or any sort of diet, there's 50,000 variations to it. And you need to look at them and see how they work on yourself. So as you say, knowledge without mileage is bullshit. Well, there's a bunch of studies that say a lot of things work on paper in a petri dish or in a closed, environment. But what happens when you try it in real life? How many ways can you fuck this up, right? And so I started messing with diet, or excuse me, I started messing with fasting, and I started doing a 16-hour fast. And the first day I was thinking, that was kind of easy. And I just ate whatever after. I wouldn't eat for 16 hours and then eat whatever the hell I wanted after. And for those of you that are listening anyway, when I say eat whatever I wanted, it's usually healthy just because I like healthy food. I like how it makes me feel as well. And that was what I started with. So I did that for a while. And then as time progressed, I started trying longer fasting periods and seeing how I felt. Normally I was of the train of thought, if I work out fasted, I'm not going to have any strength. Holy shit, what happens if I do that? And so I started working out in the mornings in a fasted state. So let's say I went to sleep at 10. I would wake up at 6 or 5, whatever it was, and I'd go to the gym. I'd have a pre-workout, but I would work out, and then I would eat after my workout. Or I would wait 2 hours or 6 hours, or just work out fasted and not have any post-workout or anything, just to see what happens with my body. Do I lose muscle? Do I lose strength? Am I going to hit a personal record, or am I going to get weaker? Am I going to hold water? What's going to happen with my body? And so after, now it's been like 3 years that I've experimented with all these different methods and variations of fasting. And I've found a method that I think works really well because, again, I've tried it on myself, and a lot of different groups of friends of mine have tried it, and different people that follow me on Instagram have tried it. And it's really cool to see. But that's kind of the evolution of the train of thought, what happened with my diet, bodybuilding, and how I went from that to where I am now, and how right now, for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book on it. So, and what happened, the reason I wrote this book, it's called The Fasting Plan, is because a couple of my buddies were asking me about diet, because they do all the time, and I'm the meathead of the group. Hey man, how do I get ripped? How do I have some abs? And I would give them advice, and I said, well, try fasting, try this, try that. And it was different methods that were in the fasting plan. And the more they used it, the more I saw them get results. And they were prompting me. I was like, dude, you should create a program with this. And like even you told me after a while, long story short, I don't mean to get ahead of it, but you said, why don't you write a book? And my buddy, a couple other buddies, why don't you write a book? And you guys didn't even, what's crazy is for those of you guys that are listening, nobody talked to each other either. They weren't just getting in a group and said, Nick, you need to write a book. It's just different people approached me at different times. And collectively, it was the same response. Hey, you need to write this book because I've had a lot of success.
So going back to what you said, you actually started experimenting this and you wanted to chart down what would happen to your physique. What actually happened? Did you lose strength? Did you gain size? What happened, and did it surprise you?
So one of the biggest surprises is when I would train fasted in the morning. So I was doing a powerlifting program at the time. Jesse Norris is also one of the athletes at Cage Muscle. He put me on a program.
Yeah, so actually for all of you that are listening that don't know Nick Holt has been with Cage Muscle since the very, very beginning. So yeah, and with Jesse Norris, which surprised me, he actually trained fasted a lot of the times. He'd be deadlifting 800 pounds and doing it fasted, which is very surprising.
But and what's weird about him is he wouldn't even plan it. He just would be too busy and wouldn't eat. And he would train, and he would go home, and I think he still does this. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask him. But he goes and trains his ass off and then goes and eats a bunch of food and then winds down for the evening and goes to bed. And so anyway, back to the story. He gave me this program, and it was a powerlifting program where you train basically every single day, and I did that for a year. And what was crazy is lifting at 5 or 6 in the morning, I'm still hitting personal records. I got stronger training fasted, which I was like, what the hell? Bullshit. You're not going to, I'm going to be weak. Well, I was, okay, hey, Nick, let's keep a radically open mind here. See what happens and give it your all, and don't, take your head out of the situation. And are you really strong or are you really weak? So doing that, I noticed personal records in the gym. I was deadlifting more weight. I was bench pressing more weight. I wasn't as sore. I noticed my, own inflammation levels go down. It's like, I took glutamine, I took supplements and stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily have to eat around my workout, because you think about it, your body, I've researched this too, and everybody's different. There's a lot of variables, but in general, if you eat a meal, how long does it take to turn that meal into usable energy? How long does your body take to do that?
Like your muscle and your liver could store plenty for at least 24 hours.
Yeah. So it just depends. I mean, you eat a Snickers bar, it spikes your insulin, but how long is it really taking that, is it taking that Snickers bar and turning it into usable energy right away? 3 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and, different foods, different times. But I thought about that idea, right? And people are listening, they might say, oh, Nick, Snickers bar takes half an hour, like 32.7 minutes, whatever. So I'm not saying that I know the exact times, because like I said, every food's different, but I am thinking about that idea, or I was, and I still am, when I researched and, when I still research, how long does it take for your body to turn that into usable energy, right? So let's say you ate the meal the night before. Well, chances are, let's say you ate rice, chicken, and broccoli, and whatever else, right? And a Snickers bar and a sweet potato. Let's say you ate all that. Well, what are the chances of you training at 6 a.m. and that all that food, all that macronutrients is broke down, and it's sent in your system, and your body is ready to go lift weights, and you have a lot more energy. What are the odds that that's going to be 100%? Well, very good, right? Because you've given it time to digest. So I thought about that, and that helped me a lot. Sybil here is telling me to put my voice closer to the mic. So there you go, guys. For those of you that could not hear me, you are welcome. It's Nick Holt talking right now. But anyway, where was I, Kris?
You were talking about what you'd eat in the evening. Then in the morning, you found that you had plenty of energy and you were breaking PBs.
Yeah, so
it's been a long day, everybody.
Yeah.
Poor Nick has had to film me all day and now face me all evening at this podcast.
But that's good times, though. But so I would eat the calories in the night, and then understanding that, when I worked out, it was crazy that I did not feel weak. I hit personal records, and I noticed I started getting leaner, you know what I mean? And I love to eat. For those of you guys that don't think so, I'm just as much like Kris or anybody else that loves to eat. And that's why I fast, which sounds counterintuitive, but you fast during the day and then you eat during the night. And that has kept me leaner than I've ever been. I've had to do less work. I mean, when I go to the gym, I go as hard as I can for sure. I periodize my training and I try to do everything properly, but I bust my ass. However, it's still easier with fasting. I feel like I have a lot more control of my life. And, back to what you were saying, Kris, is I had more energy. So that was one of the craziest things too. I wasn't as hungry as I thought. Number two and number one, I noticed myself getting stronger, and I noticed myself getting leaner, and I felt great. And I thought, you know what? Holy shit, there's something to this. I'm going to keep experimenting with this and see what the best methods are, how to, combine them. Maybe there's a certain approach that I can read in this book that might be better and combine it with something else I read in another book, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how it came to pass. So.
Right. Got it. So when I started experimenting with this myself, I think it's great when I'm transitioning, between like muscle building phase and fat loss phase, and I want to bring my inflammatory responders down. Obviously, if we're eating a lot of protein all the time, our mTOR pathways get stimulated, our IGF-1 pathways get stimulated, and that's going to lead to the early onset of aging. The opposite to what I want to do. However, I want to live the life of a bodybuilder at the same time. But there's phases in between there. And the one thing that I enjoyed about it the most, I'd say, because I'd gone like nearly 20 years without missing a meal, always never leaving the house unless I've got a cool bag. I'd freak out if I'm going to be 5 minutes over my mealtime. So when I started inviting this new protocol and applying it, I felt very empowered, because all of a sudden, if you put your phone down for a while and you say, okay, I'm not going to use the phone for the next couple of days, you still walk into the room looking for the phone. And that's what I found every time I'd leave the house. I'm like, oh, where's my cool bag? Oh, my Tupperware. Oh, I don't need it. And it felt very empowering that I actually had the control to go all day, go for 16 hours and not eat any food. And I was surprised the same way. I felt good, had good mental clarity. I didn't feel as bloated. I felt that I had more energy because I'm not digesting all these big globules of food that I would generally have. So when I trained, again, I was surprised that I had plenty of energy. Now, I would do the same protocol as you, which is kind of quote-unquote controlled fasting, where we would have our supplements. We'd have our branched-chain amino acids or glutamine or amino acids. I don't have too much of the BCAAs because I know the leucine drives up my insulin levels a little bit, but I'll have more essential amino acids and glutamine, hydrocharge, etc. Now, to all the people out there to say, well, you'd have people like Dr. Jason Fung or Dr. Sachin Panda say that, well, that's going to throw you out of your fast if you have anything that has a calorific value. Mm-hmm. So do you want to explain to our listeners what your terminology is behind controlled fasting, which is probably going to be of more benefit for those that are bodybuilders or people that are in the fitness industry that don't want to lose muscle?
Yeah, so first off, Jason Fung, and I listen to Dr. Rhonda Patrick a lot. She's been interviewed by Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss, for those of you that don't know. And like I consider those people to be experts on the matter, and they have a lot to do with a lot of the studies that are happening. And I think they have a lot of good things to say. So I agree with their method. I've found that water fasting, and for those of you who don't know, water fasting is just voluntarily abstaining from food for a certain period of time. It's called time-restricted eating also. And the point is to get your body into autophagy, which is cell cleansing, detoxification, and thermogenesis, and improves insulin sensitivity and all those good things. And I was looking into it, and the more I did, the more I saw different publications and people doing things with fasting where, okay, if you can get the same results and have a little bit of calories, and when I say a little bit, I'm talking about having cream in your coffee or having branched-chain amino acids in your time-restricted period of eating, right? Because if you're water fasting and you have anything, basically 10 calories or a stick of gum for the most part, or have coffee because of your circadian rhythm, it breaks your fast, right? So if you are doing what I term a controlled fast, it's eating little to no food during the time that you fast. And when I designed this program, I looked at a couple of variables, and one of the most important variables to any dietary program or any nutrition program or any program for that matter, for entrepreneurs or anything else, one of the main ingredients is adherence. How, are people going to stick to this? Even if they hate it, is it something they can stick to? Well, probably not. If they, it's okay, but I kind of like the results, I can do it, then yeah, they're going to stick to it. And guess what? If they stick to it, it's going to get them better results, because consistency equals results, right? Action equals results, and massive action equals massive results. So the idea is to get you doing the right actions, So fasting, we can all agree at this table, fasting is very advantageous, right? So if you can take that same method and break it into a more of a usable form and get the same results, well, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. And so again, creating this program, I was trying to find ways to screw it up. I wanted it to be, by the end of the day, and this is funny, but I always wanted to say, all right, I want this program to be impossible to fuck up. So I did all sorts of crazy things. Remind me to tell you about the listeners about the chocolate they brought me from the UK, because that's a pretty funny story. But controlled fasting is basically eating little to no food during the day. And I put cream in my coffee, and I will have a pre-workout, like pre-caged, before I work out if I lift in the morning. And if I'm really starving at 3 p.m. or something like that, you guys might have seen this on my socials if you follow my Instagram. And for new listeners, maybe not, but I eat basically a veggie tray from Albertsons or Fred Meyer's with a little bit of hummus. So celery, bell peppers, cucumbers, cauliflower, whatever. And it's just a handful of food for the most part with a little bit of fat. And it keeps me going until the time to actually break my fast, which is around 7 or 8 p.m. usually. And so it makes it much more enjoyable. It makes it easier to stick to in regarding adherence. And if you're able to do that, your program is going to be super successful. And also, if your goal is hypertrophy, for all you bodybuilders out there, controlled fasting, I believe, is the way to go as well.
So other supplements that you'd be taking, because obviously you're not having any food, like in my gallon jug here, I've got my amino acids. Are you taking your amino acids, glutamine and stuff like that in your fluid? What have you got with your water? Are you drinking plain water, or have you got something in it?
So when I fast, I've noticed that, and that's a good thing about Cage Muscle, because it's really low on artificial sweeteners and no dyes or colors or any of that crap. But when you're fasting, I recommend staying away from artificial colors and sweeteners, because your body, doesn't know what the hell to do with it. And if there's any variable you throw into the mix that might give you shitty results, then why do that, right? So for the most part, I stay away from artificial sweeteners. If I have coffee, I usually have just a little bit of cream in it. If I work out in the morning, I'll have pre-cage, and that has a little bit of sucralose, but it's mostly flavored with stevia. And I like that, and I've noticed it hasn't hampered my results. And of course, in that you have branched-chain amino acids, L-tyrosine, you got creatine hydrochloride, beta-alanine, all those good things that I believe, and that's another reason why it's so freaking awesome to train in the morning fasted, because guess what, guys? If you train in the morning and you haven't had anything in your system, you wake up, drink some water, you're hydrated. When you work out and all you have is, for instance, a badass pre-workout like pre-caged, your body and your digestive system doesn't have to compete with any other nutrients. All it has to do is focus on breaking down those awesome ingredients inside a pre-cage or pre-workout and turn it into usable energy. And guess what? It's going to hit you faster, and you're going to have a better workout. And for those guys that haven't tried this, I dare you, try it. If you work out in the morning, try one morning where you eat your rice cakes or eggs or, hash browns, whatever it is you eat, and take a pre-workout. Go lift, and then compare it to the next day that you don't eat and just have some water with pre-cage, for example, and compare your lifts. I guarantee it'll be that much better. It's night and day.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I've noticed the same sort of thing. If I have it on an empty stomach, yes, you definitely feel the effects of it. You know, you obviously, you're cleaning your adrenal glands to a certain degree. You're not dealing with any central nervous fatigue if you're not overtrained, that is, and you do feel it. It is definitely apparent. But one of the things that I really enjoy is like looking at the scientific data on intermittent fasting. Like if you look at our blue zones, whether they be in Okinawa or in Italy or in Puerto Rico or Costa Rica, sorry, there's a lot of blue zones out there that follow a certain protocol, a certain nutritional protocol, and a lot of them are fasting. They'll have their last meal at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and they're not eating again until like 10 o'clock, at least for the very day. And these blue zones are the areas where we have the most centenarians. So they are following that intermittent sort of protocol anyway. And, it's just something that has been studied now to the extent that we can actually see that there is a huge benefit, especially in regards to our autophagy effects. And this is one thing that really encouraged me to do it during my muscle building trainer last year. Like every Sunday was a fast. And then after I finished doing the video trainer, I fasted for like 5 days a week. And one of the biggest benefits, because I want to increase my health span, and the lowest hanging fruits, of course, there's a lot of biohacks out there you can spend hundreds of thousands on, but you've got the low hanging fruit that you have to have the fundamentals in place first. And one of those is from intermittent fasting, and that is what autophagy is. Like you said, it cleans your DNA. Think of a cleaner coming into your house and completely cleaning your house every week. Well, you get to do that every day when you're doing intermittent fasting. And apparently it does help with stem cell regrowth as well. I'm going for stem cells next week. But one of the things that I can do to benefit myself is actually fast as well. So my body can actually, repair itself. Have you noticed that your recovery is so much better ever since doing this, or has it gone the other way?
No, I definitely noticed my recovery increasing or improving for that matter. But it's not by much. I mean, you don't have many calories in your system. And at the end of the day, I do like to focus on this, because whether you fast or whether you don't fast or whatever diet you do, calories in versus calories out, if you eat more than you burn, you will gain weight. If you eat less, you will lose weight, right? And so in order to recover, usually when we're talking about recovery, we're talking about, putting your muscle through hell and, kicking the shit out of yourself in the gym. And then your muscles are rebuilding themselves later with the nutrients that you give it, right? And if you don't give them the right nutrients, it's not going to recover. So I think that's kind of a loaded question where I'd say yes and no, because if I'm trying to lean out, I'm going to be in kind of a deficit or right near maintenance. And when I say maintenance, I'm talking about eating the same amount of calories as my body burns. And if you do a lot of cardio, or if you do crazier weight workouts one day versus another day, you have those things to consider, so you try to keep it as close as you can. But if I eat a little bit above my maintenance level of calories, yeah, my recovery will be better. I've noticed I feel a lot better for sure. I've noticed my mental clarity a lot higher during the day, and I've noticed a lot of control. Like you just said, if you noticed, when you first started fasting, you do a 16-hour fast, all of a sudden you have more control because you feel like, you know what? Yeah, I told my hunger, like, you don't get food. You don't need that right now. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think that's very powerful, because I know for myself it is very easy to get controlled by food. You're not controlling it. The food is controlling you, or so you think. Because if you're not eating a meal, you're preparing the meal. If you're not preparing it, you're trying to think about shopping for that meal or whatever. You're constantly thinking about your food as a bodybuilder, eating 6+ meals a day. And that can consume you and your life until it controls you. And there's a lot of people out there that don't maybe have the controlling power as we do. So I think when you actually go through some of these fasting phases, like I said, it is very empowering, because all of a sudden you feel empowered that you're able to control that protocol. And for instance, like, we got Sybil here, and Sybil's mother followed my diet for maybe a year and a half. But it didn't work for her all the time, because she had to prepare a lot and weigh the food and take it out. And she's a busy woman, and it's hard, for somebody to follow that. But now she's been following the fasting protocol. And that's, I think, much more manageable for her. So there's definitely a place for it, I believe, and especially for the mainstream consumer out there who just want to live an easier lifestyle and lose weight or maintain their body fat without having to place 95% of their time into this 23 hours outside of the gym in preparing and eating food.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, for the people out there that are, if you're a bodybuilder, obviously you have to go to the grocery store like 3-4 times a week, or you're buying, nutrition solutions, of course, which is an awesome product for you guys that need meal prep, but you're always having to worry about that next meal. And if you fast, speaking to taking control over your own life, it gives you so much more freedom because you don't have to worry about having the meals during the day, and you can just focus on work, you know what I mean? Or what's, supposed to be done. And then at night, which is, by the way, in my opinion, when you want to cheat anyway, that's when you want to eat chocolates, when you want to overeat. And let's say you've lasted all day, what's two things that happen: your mental clarity improves, and your control over your day is there. But you also get to the point where you feel you just feel better, and then when you finally are able to eat, you'll notice that your stomach has shrunk a little bit.
For sure, I noticed that.
Right,
big time.
So you get there and you're like, man, it's 4:00. I just want to eat. So you eat those vegetables, right? And you're like, oh, I feel good. And honestly, the one thing too about the fasting plan is it trains you to know what the difference is between emotional hunger and true hunger, right? So this leads me into this. There's, when we were raised, or just since the beginning of time, right, at the beginning of my life, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, these are the times where you sit down with a family, maybe depending on how busy you are, but for sure lunch, for sure dinner, and maybe a snack at afternoon. So when people take their break or when people go on lunch, you think, oh shit, this is the time to eat. So, okay, yeah, I'm hungry. Even if you weren't, you tell yourself that you're hungry. So you can actually, there's a study out there, I think Jason Fung's the one that did it, but you can actually train ghrelin, your hunger hormone, to basically fire more frequently by having more frequent meals during the day, which is crazy because I don't know about you, Kris, but when I was eating 6 to 8 meals a day, training, and it's, by the way, it's a great option if you're trying to build muscle because of most protein synthesis and everything like that. However, if you're an ectomorph, which is a hard gainer, you need to be hungry more. You need food, you need calories to grow, you need to be busting your ass in the gym. But if you're off the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're an endomorph, which you imagine a guy that's easy to gain muscle but harder to lose, it's harder to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, interesting. And, when you break the fast, and I break the fast the same way, where we would eat raw vegetables first, then cooked vegetables, then our protein, and then finish off, well, this is how I would finish off, either with a fat source or a carbohydrate source. What I found, I'd have 2 meals in the evening. The first meal would have fats. That would sedate my hunger. After that, I'm good. I don't want to eat anymore. And if I've got any cravings, it's gone. Because I think what happens is that when you've starved yourself throughout the day or controlled your fast, when you do eventually eat a lot of this plant matter, it upregulates your synthesis. You're able to synthesize this food because it's starved for it. It wants these nutrients. So all these healthy nutrients, phytonutrients, your antioxidants, your vitamins and minerals are getting upregulated. So now your body is actually being satisfied for a change. You're giving it the right foods. So now you feel satisfied. You're no longer hungry. And then what I would do for my second meal, that's when I'd have carbohydrates, because I know the carbohydrates is going to release my serotonin, my melatonin a lot better, so I'm going to have a deeper sleep. And that's how I would do it. What about yourself?
I think that's amazing. So credit.
Well, you taught me that, but I would always do the fats in one and carbs in the other.
No, and that's perfect. Well, that's what's crazy is how this has evolved in my head. So when I read the Warrior Diet, for those of you that are watching, like, oh, I've read the Warrior Diet, he's kind of saying some of that same stuff. Well, that's where I got it. Originally, the order of food, the idea to do that, and it makes so much more sense. So in the book, he talks about how he breaks his fast, and he starts with raw vegetables, cooked vegetables, then protein, and then carbohydrates. And if you're trying to lose fat, you can do it in the same order, but instead of protein, you go for, instead of you do raw vegetables, cooked vegetables, protein, and then instead of carbohydrates, you do fat, right?
Okay.
that's a great way to do it. And over my experimentation, and by the way, the fasting plan, that's the way that I recommend breaking your fast, because I've just found it to be so useful. You start with that type of food. Number one, it makes you full quicker on the best, highest nutrients type of products, or type of foods, excuse me. And it's just really a good way to do it. What was I saying right before that? I was gonna had an idea and I'm losing it.
Breaking the fast.
Yeah. Shoot, man.
Well, while you're thinking about
Yeah.
it, anyway, so I was following that. And the reason why I was doing the carbs in the evening is because what I was doing last year, I don't know if you recall, so I hadn't weight trained for like 8 months. I had my shoulder surgery. I was focusing on endurance events. I thought, okay, I'm going to drop some muscle. Let's see how this goes. And I followed mostly a ketogenic adaptive diet, but it was cyclical. So I'd do the fasting throughout the day. It helped me get into ketosis quicker. Then I'd break my fast with my proteins, with my fats, my proteins, my fats, my fibrous carbs, because I still wanted to stay in ketosis. But I would follow that cyclical ketogenic diet where in the evening I had my carbohydrates, because I don't believe that a keto style lifestyle is, you can't manage it for a long time and be healthy, because you are missing out on a lot of the phytonutrients from your antioxidants. And, I wanted to have my fruits. So I'd always have my starch, carbs, and my fruits as my last meal in the evening. And I like that because a lot of my inflammatory markers, for those of you that don't know, I do get my blood reports done quite often. That could include hair follicle tests, could be telomere tests. And I noticed a lot of my inflammatory markers really did reduce. So, from a health perspective, I really did notice a difference.
Yeah.
Did you remember what you had to say?
Yeah, absolutely did. So when you talking about the ketogenic diet, breaking your fast, that was the main thing. So in my experimentation with this, breaking your fast, you can either start with raw vegetables or cooked vegetables, and the key ingredient being fiber. Or the other ingredient, you could start with fat. So you know how you're talking about just starting, your next meal, you have fat, and then you feel fine for a little bit. You might not need another meal for a while. Mm-hmm. So if you're fasting all day, and let's say 20-hour fast, 22-hour fast, and you're just eating all your macros in one meal, for example, and you're trying to lean out, well, number one, that helps you because you're going to be full quicker. I mean, it's harder to eat 2,000 calories in one meal versus 6 because you're hungry all day, and then you finally feel, cool, I'm full, you know what I mean? But from what I've noticed and what I've read as well, that if you break your fast with raw vegetables or cooked vegetables or fat, it basically, not attacks, but tells your hunger hormone ghrelin that to chill out, and you're not as hungry anymore. So you'll notice that your stomach shrunk during the day, and then that alludes to the ketogenic diets a little bit as far as fat, because the best way to start descent into ketosis, which is a ketogenic diet, is to start with fasting, which is crazy enough, right? So they do go hand in hand, but like Kris, I do agree with you that ketogenic diets, yeah, they work, but they're hard as shit to adhere to. I just talked about adherence a minute ago, right? But adherence is huge, because let's say I have tons of friends like this. They're really into fitness, but let's be honest, they like to drink beer every once in a while. They like to be able to go out and be social and not be tied to their Tupperware meals, right? So if you're on a ketogenic diet and you've been losing weight like crazy, cool, I've been doing it 4 days, and let's say it's somebody's birthday and you want to go out to a restaurant, you can't just order one beer. Like, you can't just have one piece of cake. If you are fasting, and I'm not saying to do that, but you can do that. Like, if you're fasting all day and let's say you had some McDonald's, or you had some cake or a beer or whatever, what are the chances that would screw up your whole plan if you were doing that when you were fasting, or if you were doing that with a ketogenic diet? Well, I can answer that. The latter, it would totally screw you up. It would take you out on ketosis, and then who knows how long it would take you to get into ketosis again. And so for those listeners that don't know what a ketogenic diet is, it's basically when you eat low carbohydrates for a long enough period of time, and usually it's anywhere from 36 to 48 hours to get in a full-blown ketosis, and where your body actually turns the fat that you eat into fuel and
ketones.
Yeah, into ketones, and anything that you don't use for example, is excreted through your urine as a byproduct, and hence the keto sticks that you take these sticks and put them in your urine, and it tells you what amount of ketosis that you're in, full blown or whatever, and that's where the magic happens, right? But once you get into that, that's awesome. You feel great, and you start getting leaner. But guess what? The period of time that it takes, that 24 to 36 hours, whatever it is, to get into ketosis, you're an irritable asshole. You hate your life, and you want to punch a wall, right? I know I've been there. For those of you, you've done ketosis before?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did it for almost like 7 months last year. Like I said, it was cyclical. It didn't really bother me, but I think what you're trying to say is, for the majority of people, it's going to be hard. Like if, for instance, like I didn't find it that difficult myself. You're going to have a lot of people in the industry, like Sean Wells. Obviously, he's followed it for 20 years. You have like people like Ben Greenfield. Right. He kind of follows that protocol, but he follows a cyclical. And the thing is, what I found, if I kind of knock myself out of ketosis slightly every evening, I felt good, because the next morning I'd wake up and I'm back into ketosis because I'm fasting throughout the day again. So I'd get straight back into it. So I was in and out quite frequently, and I felt okay there. But what you have to realize, I'm eating a lot of plant matter as well. So I'm feeding myself good nutrient-dense food there. I'm getting all my vitamins and minerals. I'm getting my good fats. I made sure that the fats that I'm getting in have some sort of calorie, have a good nutrient value to it. So for instance, the olive oil that we source, it's we get it on subscription. It's from Grove and Vine. I always get this mixed up, Vine or Grove and Vine. And, it's on your table. You are using it within 3 months of harvesting it. So we're making sure that we're having good fats when we're doing this. And I didn't feel so bad because it's feeding my brain with fat, but I'm holding a lot of body fat at the same time. So it is Grove and Vine. Yeah, Grove and Vine. Check them out. However, if I was trying to utilize that for fat loss, I think I'd find it pretty challenging in that regards. If I was at a much lower body fat trying to follow a ketogenic diet, I think I'd find it a little bit more difficult. But it could be wrong. I've never ventured there.
Right. No, that's a good point. I just think the majority, like you're saying, that on a general level, I think ketosis is great. It's not my favorite way to do it or to get lean and stay lean, because there's so many variables to consider, and it takes you out of ketosis.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for instance, from a physique standpoint, it's not something that I'd probably follow. I know some people that do. Jason Warwick, there's a couple of those guys out there that do it. But for health purposes, every now and again, as it's quite an anti-inflammatory diet to follow for most people, not everybody. Some people get inflammatory responders from the fats. But I think it's good to do as a kind of a detox. For me, it works well with fasting, for me personally, as opposed to going the higher carb route. But, if I'm going through a fat loss or a muscle building phase, I'm not following ketogenic.
Yeah. No, I think there's great things and that's the great thing about you, Kris, honestly, is you try so many different things and you have a radically open mind. And I think that's why I continue to see you evolve each year. You know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, well, that's a good point. I mean, just not to get too off topic here, but like, I've filmed Kris for years, and it's like there'll be people that come up to Kris in the gym, and they'll say, hey, nice to meet you. I did your workout program, and you'll start talking to them for a second, and then Kris will see them on the other side of the gym. Maybe he'll see them doing some new ab exercise or something, and you'll ask them, hey, where'd you get that? Oh, I made it up. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And then they'll start talking to you and telling you something about abs or whatever training body part that they're doing. And if it's something you haven't seen, you don't have an ego so big where you wouldn't listen to what their opinion is, because it's something new. And so that it makes you evolve. So the same thing with these ketogenic diets, fasting diets, and whatever. And you haven't missed a meal in like 19 years, right? Until you did this. And
had that colonoscopy, yeah.
Yeah. And then you feel great, and it's honestly like, have you told me your skin's looking better and all that stuff?
Yeah, skin is looking better for sure. Skin had improved, and the more than anything, like I said, was that sense of empowerment. I loved leaving the house without my cool bag. I was like, yes, that cool bag didn't control me, and that Tupperware I haven't seen. It's great. That was good, but I really like the mental clarity, especially in the morning. As soon as you hit the midday, sometimes you have that afternoon slump, but the mental clarity was still there, even if I may have been a little bit fatigued. Another thing that I've noticed now, of course, there's a few things that are contributing factors towards this, but sleep is very important for me. I quantify it now with my Aura ring, obviously, but seeing my sleep improve That was a major thing for me. And I guess, again, I'm not trying to digest all this food. And you know me, Nick, I'd be waking up in the night to eat.
Yeah.
I was terrible, man. It controlled me. And just having that now, knowing that I can go to bed without eating, not waking up and having a shake or food. And remember, I used to wake up every 30 minutes. I went to a clinic for these problems. 3 hours sleep a night. And now, I quantified it. I had 7 hours, 22 minutes of sleep last night. May have not been the best sleep, but I was in bed for 8 hours, and 7 hours, 22 minutes of that was sleeping. So that's one of the things that I find is a great contributing factor of following this. I hope that if I, get out of the fasting for a while, that it doesn't screw up my sleep again, because I feel that, I've come back to ground zero.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I can say this is, in my opinion, it's a contributing factor to how good a sleep you're getting is the amount of time that, if you think about it, I'll say my age. I don't know if we want people to know your age. Right?
Nobody knows yet.
Nobody
so
knows
keep it
yet.
stumped.
All right.
Yeah. No,
so
don't send him any. Don't try to send Nick any money, because he probably will give it away
so
for
Kris is
$5.
71. He's 71 years old.
71.
Yeah, right behind Arnold. But anyway, imagine if you are 71, or if you're 40, or if you're 21 years old. So if you've never fasted before, your body has, you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, let's say, right? So in that amount of time, your digestive system has never had a break, right? So if you think about your body like a computer, right? If you don't have a lot of RAM, random access memory, and you have a bunch of programs running, what happens to your computer? It bogs down, right?
Yeah, slowing down.
So by shutting down a few programs, your body can dedicate its resources to other programs and make them run more efficiently, right? So the same thing with your body. Your body has, a large amount of its resources dedicated to processing and digesting food and turning it into energy constantly, day in, day out, especially for the bodybuilders out there, right? So let's say, me, I'm 38 years old. So if I've gone 38 years without that, and then all of a sudden I say, hey, shit, I'm going to fast. I'll try it. Okay. So let's say I fast 16 hours or 20 hours or whatever. All of a sudden your body gets the freed up capability to devote its energy to other cool things like cancer prevention, or autophagy, which is detoxification, insulin, improve your insulin sensitivity, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a big one. Lowering the impact with, like I said, the IGF-1 and the mTOR pathways.
Yeah, and giving your body just a better overall. It's like cleaning out your system and repairing itself, and it's just able to do everything in a much more efficient manner. So you can imagine if you're trying to build muscle, if hypertrophy is your goal, or if losing fat is your goal, or anything else. It's like cleaning the spark plugs in your car. I mean, getting an oil change, all that good stuff. Your body can now work on processing all, or doing all those other cool things. And so with your sleep, where that is concerned, it makes a lot more sense, because your body is basically getting rid of the bad and, keeping the new, and
exactly.
repair and regenerating, right?
Yeah, if people look up the word autophagy, it means self-eating. And that's what it is. It's self-eating all the bad crap that's inside yourself that would usually be there, like you said, that would be slowing down or taking up your RAM space, bogging you down. So it's good to kind of clean house and do these things every now and again, regardless of your goals.
Yeah. So, that doesn't surprise me at all that you're getting better sleep, you have improved biomarkers, and that you're just feeling better overall. That's everybody that I talk to, that does fasting or any type of fasting for the most part. If they're giving their digestive system a break, they just feel better and look better. And that's one of the key principles that I've done the last 3 years, and that's why I feel now that I'm even leaner than I was then, on basically an all day 24/7, 360, whatever. So.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I suggested people do it in a muscle building trainer, just a 1 day a week, and that would be on a non-training day. So on the one non-training day, it was higher fat, and then on the other non-training day, it was fasting, because if you're trying to put on a lot of muscle, you're eating a lot of meals. That is clogging up your system. And of course, we want to increase our protein synthesis and our nutrient synthesis. So if we're able to clean ourselves out, clean our intestinal tract, obviously I do suggest other things like your apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, everything that kind of cleans you out, and a high fiber diet as well, then that only helps with your insulin sensitivity. So when you go back into the meals on your Monday to Friday or whatever, you're able to upregulate a lot of those nutrients and actually put on muscle.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's go straight into your book. So tell us a little bit about your book. Who's it for? Who did you write it for? And, how would people apply this to themselves?
Gotcha. Well, so I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, but I wanted to make it for anyone that wants to improve their lives. As far, I'm not selling necessarily to, I'm not preaching to bodybuilders necessarily, or people that don't lift necessarily. It's if you want to lose weight, if you want to be lean all year. It's like the thing that I've lifted for, since I was 14 years old. So that's a hell of a long time. And a lot of friends have asked me, well, how do I put on muscle? And like, hold on. What's your goal, right? And their goal is usually, I want to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club or whatever. It's like that guy in the movie, he's 6'1", 155. He's not very big at all, but it's like asking yourself what you truly want. And most of these people that have tried my program, what do they really want? They want to improve their health, number one, and they want to get leaner, number two. And so you can try this with the weight program, and you can try this if you don't lift as well. And I guarantee you will love the results, right? So long story short, I'd say it's for people that anywhere from, 25 to 35-year-old, dudes that are, they've tried other programs, but they're wanting to get leaner, and just they don't want to base their whole lives around eating out of Tupperware. They want to have more control over their lives. It's for the entrepreneurs out there that want to, get results in the fastest possible time, the most bang for the buck. So basically anybody that reads diet books, because it's a high selling market anyway. But I'm very confident I found a solution for that, and the goal is to get better. So get lean, stay lean 365.
Okay, and what sort of fasting protocol would somebody have to expect to do this? Are they fasting for 12 hours, 16 hours, 22? Is this going to be kind of imposing to people? And if so, how do you navigate around that?
Yeah. So, the way that it's specified in the plan that I've, it's been many different revisions of the program and changing and tweaking things, but more or less there's two different phases in it. If you've never fasted, there's a primer phase and an acclimation phase, which each is a week period of time, right? So week 1, primer phase, week 2, acclimation phase, and then week 3, it's the full fat burning plan, which is the fasting plan. And it basically is designed to get you in touch with fasting, understand what hunger is, understand what hunger isn't, an emotional level and a real level, to know what true hunger is, and to get you basically acclimated, like it said, is you get you used to what's to come, because if you do things in the correct order, and it's like I wouldn't tell somebody if they've never lifted to go do some of your DTP workouts, right? They would try to understand what a bench press is, understand how to do it correctly, and then move on from that, and they grow from it, right? So the same thing with this, the acclimation phase, the primer phase, and then you go into the full the full fat burning program, which is the 3rd week, which in that, just tell you guys, for those that you don't, or that are super curious, it's basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or 4 days you're going to do straight into it. You're going to do basically a 20 to 22 hour fast. You're going to go all in, and then you break your fast, as we said, the same way. And on Friday and Saturday, you're going to do a 16-8 fast. And then on Sunday, you're going to basically eat whatever you want. And when I say whatever you want, it's normal meals, eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, but try to keep it healthy as you always would. And, see what happens. And then it starts again on next Monday. And I've noticed really, really great results doing it that way, because if you change, there's different studies about this too, but if you change your periods of time restricted eating, it's more or less like, if for those bodybuilders out there, if you've done carb cycling, if you just eat low carbs for 30 days in a row, well, yeah, you're going to lose fat, but you'll hit a stick point eventually, I guarantee you, where you're like, oh shit, I'm not losing any fat anymore. Like, what's going on? I feel like shit. But it's easy to stay on the diet, right? Because you're in that magic zone, right? But if you introduce carbohydrates, or if you introduce changes in your dietary schedule, all of a sudden it's like magic happens, and you end up firing your thermogenesis again. You end up firing your metabolism again, and then the next day you're hungry as hell. But guess what? You look better, your skin's tighter, everything else. So I wanted to take, when I was messing with this, I did the same thing with, okay, carb cycling. How do we do this? Because I've done tons of different variations of that, preparing for bodybuilding shows. And the best form that I found And they'll say this too. There's studies out there, and there's a lot of people preaching it. Doing a 20 to 22 hour fast is freaking awesome, and a 16-8, which is a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour window, is really good too. And they say at least fast 16 hours for autophagy reasons only. You need to at least do that. So I thought, why not combine both of them and see how my body reacts to it, and see how people that have tried this program reacted. And it's been amazing. It's like all of a sudden it just makes their metabolism fire again, and it gets them right back on track right after they stop. But that's basically the protocol. There's a lot more to it, but I wanted to keep it simple, effective, and reproducible. If something is too complex, people won't follow it, and people won't adhere to it, right? And again, I speak about adherence a lot, but I believe it's very important.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And I can attest, because I've read that book. I had the revision of it. I took it with me to, God, where did I go? I went to Dubai, India. It came with me to France, UK, and back here. And there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of pages. But it's very, like you said, it's very applicable. And, there's people out there that I know here in the community from Boise that are, your average Joe. But like you said, if you're an entrepreneur and if you want to dedicate all your time to work, you don't want to be disrupted by calls or meal times. And it's good because then you can kind of enjoy your meals in the evening. It's very applicable. So This book, from my understanding, it isn't out just yet. So I'm assuming if it's not out, we can't put a link in the show notes just yet. When will it be out? And for everybody listening, I suggest that you follow Nick on his socials so you do get updates on its release. Give him your socials and give him the plug.
Yeah, so thanks, man. Shameless plug, right?
Yeah.
I do actually have a website, and I do have an email list that I send tips and tactics and strategies out for those of you that are trying to use fasting to get in better shape. But it's called www.thefastingplan.com. And the book is going to be released this month, actually. As of today's date, it's middle of January, so you guys will be seeing that soon. My social media account that is the one I use the most is the Instagram, and it's at the Nick Holt, and that's it. And
the Nick Holt. So we'll put these links in the show notes as well. So if anybody is driving, you can't actually write this down, go to our show notes. We've got the link to the website and to Nick's Instagram.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, buddy. You've been staring at me all day filming. You're going to be staring at me again all day tomorrow as we film overviews for a new video trainer. And you've had to stare at me for the last hour. Aren't you a lucky boy? All those
so
listeners
great.
are just thinking they prefer to be in that same position as you, Nick.
It's so weird that I'm not turned on right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm glad there's a table separating us.
You'll have to tell everybody later about the chocolate story.
Oh, yeah, the chocolate story.
Should
Before we go, do you want to tell him? Or I'll tell him?
You go ahead and you tell
Okay,
it.
all right. So when I went to the UK, I've told Nick a while, I said, you haven't tried the chocolate from the UK? The American chocolate sucks. It's disgusting. It's terrible. It's nothing like the Cadbury's from the UK. So I came back with 13 bars, different bars.
13
bars. People from the UK listening would know Double Decker, Topic, Curly Whirly, all these different bars. And I brought them back. I said, there you go, buddy. And I checked in with him like 2 days later. 2 days later,
so,
I think it was.
Well, this is what happened. He brought back 13 bars. I'm like, holy shit, bro, that's a lot of chocolate. Score, awesome. And you're like, no, it's way better though. And I said, bullshit, it's not better. I'll try it, but we'll see. I'm like, thanks though, appreciate it. So I take them home, put them in my freezer because you got to put chocolate in the freezer, right? You got to do it. It tastes way better that way. So what happened? This is when I've been experimenting with fasting, right? And so at this point, I left them in the freezer a couple days, and Kris and I were actually filming the Man of Iron Trainer, I believe, at the time, right? And I came home, and I worked out, I think, that evening. It was one of the workouts that I did later in the evening, but I'm fasted all day, and I just remember, like, holy shit, those chocolate bars are in there. I'm like, okay, I'll try one. So I rip off a piece. I go and watch a little bit of The Office, right, on Netflix, and I'm like, fuck, that was really good, okay. I go back in the freezer, get another piece, go sit down again. I do that same fucking thing, eating 2 bars, I'm like, okay, well, shit, those were really good. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to eat. I'm just going to have another piece of chocolate. I do that one more time, and then I'm like, fuck it. I just go grab all the bars, and I bring them onto my couch, and I friggin' go through it. I'm like, fuck this. This is so good. And I didn't eat anything else the rest of the night. I see Kris at the gym the next morning, and he's like, dude, what's up? And I'm like, nothing, how's it going? And by the way, I ate those chocolate bars. He's like, you did? I was like, no, I ate all of them. I'm like, you kidding me? You ate what? You ate all of them? I'm like, yeah, it was a kind of a bad night.
Like anybody from the UK would know, there's a higher amount of sugar. Elliot, our friend, told us this actually. There's a lot more sugar in UK chocolate than there is in the US, and that's a crazy diabetic coma.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't even know how your stomach handled the dairy. Like, I'd be dead on the toilet for about 3 days after 3 bars. But you did 13 and you were fine.
13, that's fine. I mean,
see, that's what fasting does to you guys. You can eat 13 bars and feel great.
Yeah, just so we're clear, I'm not saying to do that, but if you fuck up like that, you'll be glad that you are fasting. And honestly, I felt great the next day. And I honestly think if I wasn't fasting, if it would have been one of those bodybuilding days, the bodybuilders out there, they're like, screw it, I'm going to cheat on my diet, I'm going to eat whatever. I would have been bloated and just looked like crap and felt bad, whatever. And the next day I felt perfectly fine.
So the next year I went back to the UK, I brought back the bars again. However, I rationed them. I gave him 1 a day, and I asked him to send me a video of when he was eating them, because I didn't want him to store them and hoard them like a squirrel and just eat them all at once. And he did. He was a good boy. But this time around, when I came back, I brought him a box of what's called celebrations, which are mini-sized, tiny pieces of those bars. That was Sybil's idea. But that kind of went the same way as 2 years prior. He ate the friggin' lot in one go.
Kris was over at dinner, actually, and I was like, you want one? So he ate one. So I didn't eat all of them. He ate like 1 or 2.
I had one, yeah.
Yeah. And he looks over 5 minutes later, and he says, hey, dude, how are those chocolates? I'm like, they're good. They're gone. They're all gone. You're shitting me. So,
all right.
Anyway.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, Nick Got Halted. Really appreciate you being on the show. And for all of you listening, go check out that book. It's a great one, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the applications that are inside. I am Kris Gethin. This is the Knowledge and Mileage Podcast, and we are out.